Maybe.
A show created by the fans, for the fans. We are your home for Ohio State football coverage all year long. The Scarlet and Gray Podcast, a Network 216 production. Live weekdays on the Network 216 YouTube channel. Send us all your questions and comments on Twitter at @VSG_podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Tyler Johnson, Jordan Dalton, and Nick Leisure.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to season 2, episode number 2 of the Scarlet and Gray Podcast. I am Tyler Johnson, joined as always by my boys, Jordan Dalton, Nick Leisure. Gentlemen, how are we doing this evening?
Doing well. Doing
great. Doing great. Glad to hear it, gentlemen. Glad to hear it. Before we get started, we have a great guest tonight, as we did last week. But before we get started, guys, just a reminder, if you would just drop a like on this video, really help that YouTube algorithm grow and Network 216 grow. But also subscribe if you're brand new to the channel. I've had a lot of new subscribers recently. So if you're a new subscriber, first off, thank you and welcome. But also spread the word. We're trying to reach 2,000 subscribers, and we're less than 200 away from that goal, and you can help us get there. Also, before we do get started, there is a link in the description. My mother-in-law was recently diagnosed with non-small cell lung cancer. There is a GoFundMe page that we have started. So if you guys would consider donating or even spreading the word, it's on my Twitter account as well at T_Johnson_TJ. Even if you can't donate, all I ask is you just share that post. Really would go a long way, and we would appreciate that support. And now we're going to bring on our guest. He is from the Buckeye Huddle, covers Ohio State football, Mr. Kevin Noon. Kevin, how you doing this evening?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on the show, guys.
Yeah, anytime. We really appreciate you making the time for us. We're going to get right into it. So a lot of fans heard Ryan Day's comments the other day about Kyle McCord and Devin Brown, basically saying that in the scrimmage, he really didn't see one take the opportunity to lead this team as far as consistency. He has not seen that level of consistency from Kyle McCord or Devin Brown. A lot of fans are getting worried about this quarterback situation right now. What is your viewpoint of why Ryan Day, you think, is taking so long to name a starting quarterback? And do you think Ohio State fans should be worried? Because fans are, of course, wondering, we're less than 2 weeks from the start of the season and we still don't have a starting quarterback.
Well, I understand why fans are being concerned about it. And that's, as a fan, that is certainly well within your rights. But let's be honest. I think if we go back, and I'm going to plagiarize some work from my colleague, Tony Gerdeman, and you look at when the last couple of starting quarterbacks were named under Ryan Day, it's in the next couple of days. It's around the third week of August. It's generally after the second scrimmage that decision is made public. Now, I think you really need to get down to the point of, why does a starting quarterback need to be named? Does a starting quarterback need to be named because it benefits the team? It benefits the player? It benefits the fans? As soon as you name a starting quarterback, the columns are going to come out. You picked the wrong one. So I don't know why necessarily that there's this urgency to name a starter. I think going into next week, 6 days from now, they will start some Indiana install. I think at that point, you need to have a starting quarterback, even if it's not named publicly. They're running 2 fields right now. They've got more wide receivers than they know what to do with. And that is a fantastic problem to have. But they can sit there and they can run a lot more reps right now than they could with just going with one field. So I don't know if I would necessarily be concerned. I think that you want to just make sure you get this right. And even if Ryan Day knows who it's going to be, they're going to need both these guys, in my opinion. And that's not, trying to speak something into existence that none of us want to see happen, and a Another quarterback has to get inserted for this reason, that reason, or another reason. But I think that taking it up pretty much until the end is probably the right decision. And I've certainly gotten into it with a lot of people on social and even members over at Buckeye Huddle, because this is the polarizing type of situation. But at the end of the day, I don't think Ryan Day can make a wrong decision with either of these guys.
Yeah, I would say one of the interesting takes that I saw, and this is just the climate that we're in currently in college football, was that Ryan Day was not naming a starting quarterback to prevent a transfer, and that was more early on in the spring. And I thought that was kind of a wild take, but I think TJ actually believed that that could have been a factor in why he didn't name a starting quarterback right away.
Well, there's something to be said about that. I think that we are in the Wild West in terms of player movement, and quarterback is the position that seems to move the most. And Devin Brown has been asked at length, if you don't get the starting job, are you out of here? And he said no, that, you know, he's here for the long run. He wants to figure it out and everything else. Now, knowing what we know about the eligibility of these two guys, if Kyle McCord is named the starter, has a special year, he could be gone. I mean, I'm going to just, spoiler alert, if Ohio State has the type of season that Ohio State fans are hoping for, it is going to be a mass exodus, because there is a ton of players that will be draft eligible after this season that are already draft eligible, who will remain draft eligible, that will move on. I think it's more of a concern at that point if Devin Brown would have won it and Kyle McCord could have gone out and maybe found something, as he's another year into the program longer than Devin Brown, et cetera, et cetera. So you do have to play a little bit of defense, in my opinion, just to try and keep everybody happy. But that's not going to just be a quarterback issue. That's going to be an everybody issue. And it's just a difference of where college football is today than where it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It's just part of the situation. But when Ryan Day came out this spring and said, I'd love to name a starting quarterback by the end of spring, I'm like, yeah, right. There's no upside to that. I mean, I understand you're asked your questions at that point. You have offensive line issues that you're going to have to address. You've got a lot of things that are on the table that have to be looked at if you could push one thing off. But I would not rush my quarterback decision at this point. But, something that's been kind of floated out there too by people just asking, it's like, if you don't have one guy that pulls ahead, could you have a 2 quarterback type of system? And I certainly don't see that being the case.
No, that's really good to hear, because I know a lot of us remember the JT Barrett, Cardale Jones dilemma that really, I think, ended up ruining that season for Ohio State, is not sticking with not picking a starting quarterback and then sticking with them, I think became a problem. Some fans also wonder, and this is the last thing we're going to talk about as far as the quarterback situation, some fans wonder, now, he wasn't an early enrollee, and I think that did hurt his opportunity to even be considered into this battle. But some fans wonder if true freshman 4-star quarterback Lincoln Kienholz is in this at all. Do you believe he has any chance to be the Buckeyes starting quarterback, or is it more likely that he is going to redshirt this year?
Yeah, he's not going to be the quarterback. He's not going to be the starting quarterback, plain and simple. I mean, he came in in the summer. He doesn't know what he doesn't know. He has a ton of talent and everything else. I think that they're going to get his feet wet in a couple of games, as you're able to do with the redshirt rule, and you can play up to 4 games. But there's no reason necessarily to start his clock. I think it's a case of, if you start getting into the depth, that's why you brought in Tristan Gebbia. Now, if you're in week 10 and you sit there and you don't look at freshmen as freshmen anymore, they're players that have had a year of experience, almost, more or less. Maybe you view things a little differently there, but no, I don't see that. All the platitudes, everything else. Lincoln Kienholz hasn't lost his black stripe, to my opinion. I think, I remind everybody that there's no book of metrics of you have to do X, Y, and Z, or A, B, and C to become an official Buckeye and lose your black stripe. That's not how it works. I mean, it is a motivational ploy. Some players play better with their black stripe on in terms of practice because they're pissed off and they want to get rid of it. There are other guys that you have to coddle a little bit more. Hey, here's here, we're not going to give you the stick. We're going to give you the carrot. We're going to take your black stripe off, and hopefully things turn the corner there. But no, I mean, I certainly have heard that chatter as well, but no.
And okay, so I'll go to the next one here. JD, I wasn't sure if you had one.
No, I was really good information. It's all good. Yeah. I was definitely. I think Lincoln Keenholz could be a guy in the future, but like you said, I think he's just going to be sitting the pine this year.
Well, he's going to be a great scout team guy as well. I think.
Yeah.
His athleticism. I mean, if he has to be a JJ McCarthy for a week, I think he's going to be a great guy to run that practice squad and really give a great look against some of these quarterbacks that we're going to have to play against this year.
Yeah, and a really good question here, Kevin. So there are some Buckeyes, some younger guys that didn't really make an impact or play a whole lot last year. Who is one guy, either going to be a sophomore this year or possibly even a redshirt sophomore, that you believe is going to be a player that Buckeye fans are going to know by the end of the season?
Kenyatta Jackson on the defensive line. I think he's somebody who is really he already looked impressive physically, but he looks even more impressive right now. I think that there's a case that he could maybe even eat into a few of Jack Sawyer's snaps. I think that he is somebody that you're going to have to kind of keep an eye on. I'll also throw Tywone Malone, who wasn't with the Ohio State program previously, but now that he's focused on football and not baseball, I think that he can really make a push there. I'd like to be thorough, so let's talk about on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, it's going to really be hard to push through at wide receiver just based on what they have and with the true freshmen that they have. I don't know if Kojo Antwi or Keon Grays is going to be able necessarily to be that guy. I think we could sit there and kind of look at just how the offensive line is and the guys that are kind of stepping up there. But I feel really comfortable with my defensive side, and I think that's where people have more concerns right now. We know what the offense is. Granted, we don't know who the quarterback is. We don't know who the center and the tackles are or whatever, but we know that car runs fast and runs hot. So that's not a concern. Everybody's concerned about the defense, and I think there are a lot of younger guys that are ready to take that next step.
Do you think that's because everybody's more familiar with Jim Knowles' system and just what he's been implementing in the past year that he's been at Ohio State?
There's something to that. I mean, I think there's certainly something to familiarity, and I think it's not as much of just a case of the players being more familiar with Jim Knowles. I think Jim Knowles is more familiar with the players.
Yeah.
You don't come in and just sit there and say, well, this is what I do, and if you don't fit, GTFO. That's not how it works. I mean, you need to sit there and play to the strengths of the players that you have, and that's always a challenge as a first year, and we're talking 2022, first year coach, whether it be a coordinator or just a position coach. You're coming into a room where you didn't select the players. So that doesn't necessarily mean that he has a bunch of true freshmen that he's going to be able to put out there that he was involved in the recruiting of. But with that being said, he's had another year to be around these guys, another year to kind of see some things, another year to see that maybe in the highest leverage spots, we shouldn't go cover zero. Who am I? Who am I to say that? But I think that there's a lot to it. And I think that the defense is really going to take some steps forward. And we can all fall into the trap of, I know Chimti Chekwa just posted on social media, I think it was this morning, about that he was at a practice. Yesterday was the former players and families practice. And he said, this secondary, they're making moves, they're getting hands on balls, etc. I mean, I believe all of that. I don't know. He doesn't have any reason to lie to us or whatever, but let's see what happens when they're lined up against a team in a different jersey color, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think good things are coming.
And that brings up a really good player that Buckeye fans seem to have a love-hate relationship with. It seems like his freshman year, he was fantastic. We thought he was the next great corner at Ohio State. His sophomore year really struggled. Started to get a little bit better towards the end of the year. But Are you confident that Denzel Burke can find his groove and get back to the player he was his freshman year? What are your thoughts on the upcoming junior corner?
He seems to have had a great offseason. He seems to be healthy. I mean, that's a big thing. I mean, and that's something that if I had 20 minutes where I could sit down with Ryan Day and talk completely off the record and what's said here stays here and everything else, I'd really like to see him kind of review the way that he handles injuries. And I understand the reasoning behind it, but a lot of times we're unaware, and by we I just mean everybody is kind of unaware of the health of these players. And I don't know if anybody's necessarily going to cut a kid a break. It's like, wow, he's hurt. I mean, the kid's out there balling even though he's hurt. But I think that the secondary had some significant injuries that just were underreported and we weren't really talking about. I think a healthy Burke, if he gets off to a decent amount of success begets success. And I think that you just kind of build upon that. And I think that a big season's there because this is a contract year. This is a contract year. This is the year that you sit there, you have the big year, and then go to Indy and you go to the combine and then you're off to the league and you're getting paid and you're representing BIA. So I don't think that he necessarily forgot how to play the position. I don't think that he suddenly just had this regression that was inexplicable. I think some of the regression was he was hurt. He wasn't able to make plays. And while success begets success, I think that defeat is also a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. And when that kind of goes on, they start to pick on you, and then it really kind of gets with your head. So I think this is going to be a big year for both Burke and for Jordan Hancock at that matter.
Love to hear that.
Yeah, we need Jordan Hancock. Is his biggest problem just been, you think? Because we had another guy that covered Ohio State Buckeyes, Nathan Byard for Cleveland.com. He was saying that Jordan Hancock, he believes, is actually the Buckeyes' best corner, but he just hasn't been healthy. Would you agree with that?
Ask me after week 4. Ask me after Notre Dame, because I mean Jordan Hancock certainly has a skill set. Denzel Burke certainly has a skill set. I think it's just going to be a matter of I don't think that Ohio State necessarily has a clear defined CB1. I don't think that there's one that you sit there and it's like, that's the guy that is going to line up against this guy and that guy and the other guy. And it doesn't matter which side of the field you're going. Doesn't matter if you're, boundary side or field side. We're going to sit there and make sure this guy's lined up over the opponent's best receiver. I think that it's something of where you're kind of able to they're much more interchangeable, and it's not going to be a case of where you have a significant drop off. Now, I'm all for riding the hot hand, and somebody may be better this game and somebody may be better that game, and you kind of go with it. But I don't necessarily see a hierarchy there between the two of them.
The Buckeyes added a lot of players to the transfer portal, mainly on the defensive side of the ball. Who is one player they added from the transfer portal that you think is going to have the biggest impact for the Buckeyes this season?
I think that Tywone Malone could be the guy, as I mentioned before. But I mean, God, if we're going to be, let's just stay in the secondary. Talk about Davison Igbinosun. That's a name that's always a mouthful for me. I'll have it down by the Western Kentucky game. But I think that he is somebody that, he's just built different. He's built different, and that's not taking anything away from Burke or Hancock. But I mean, he's a guy out there that first day of practice, we saw him out there wearing Sonny Styles' number, and nobody was necessarily being like, "That's really wrong." We were all like, "That's sort of wrong," but that he's still a big kid. So I think he's somebody that could really fit into the mix. I mean, you'd like to see him and Jahad Carter and obviously Tywone Malone all step up and have significant roles. And I think that the opportunities are going to be there. I think the opportunities for Ohio State to roll corners are going to be there. Certainly you roll on the defensive line, almost maybe to the detriment of the defensive line, because you're saving guys for fourth quarters of games where you don't necessarily play 4-quarter games in 8, 9 out of 12 games on the regular season schedule. So I don't necessarily agree with that all the way. And then, Jahad Carter got dinged up a little bit in spring and had to, was on the mend a little bit there. But I think he's somebody else that could kind of step in and maybe crash the party in the safety rotation. But I'm sure we're going to be talking about one guy that has to be out on the field, and that's Sonny Styles. And how do you sort all of that out and make sure that you've got that everybody is getting the right amount of snaps, and that you're not necessarily throwing the baby out with the bathwater, just trying to sit there and keep everybody happy.
Yeah.
It always seems to be an Ohio State problem.
Having too much talent is, of course, never a problem. And I'm glad you brought up Sonny Styles, because he's the guy that many people have said cannot leave the field this year. What would you say would be the position you think he excels at the most? He seems to be an Isaiah Simmons type player, the former Clemson athlete that just could play absolutely, line up every single position on the defense and make an impact. Do you see that same type of player in Sonny Styles, or would you say there is more of a position that he is suited for?
I mean, I want him there in run support. I mean, that is for certain. We saw him out there against Georgia, and Georgia, when it was running its 12 before Darnell Washington got hurt, he was very much involved there. There is a lot of I think there's a lot of opportunity for him out there on the field. And yeah, it's all well and good. Oh, we don't want to see him off the field. There are going to be situations of where it may not necessarily work best for him. If you're going against a team that's emptying the backfield and going 5 wide, I don't know if I necessarily want Sonny Styles out there at that point. But, I want him playing closer to the ball. I want him there in run support. I want him there as a thumper. Let Jahad Carter, let Lathan Ransom, let Cam Martinez, Kai Stokes, Malik Hartford, Josh Proctor. I mean, I could go down the list and everything else, but you need to sit there and be able to play to the strengths of Styles, and I think that's a lot of his physicality.
Yeah, I am a big fan of Sonny Styles, for sure. And then we got his brother as well, who just transferred in from Notre Dame. So,
right, and with Lorenzo Jr. And I think that's going to be see you next year. This is kind of a redshirt year. You're learning the secondary as a collegiate player and everything else. I mean, I think that he's somebody who could be really solid on special teams this year. But then again, you're going to have to make a decision when you get to that 4-game mark. Is it worth burning a red shirt? And I will bring up kind of one of my, I don't want to say pet peeves, because at the end of the day, it's subscribers that make the world go round. That's how I'm able to pay my bills and everything else. So I love all subscribers and everybody else out there. But people get so concerned about somebody's redshirt year. The coaches don't worry as much about redshirting, and I don't think fans should worry about redshirting either. I mean, if a player is fantastic, he's going to be there 3 years, maybe 4. But trying to get a 5th year or a 6th year, and Lord knows a 7th year because of COVID and everything else, who are you necessarily doing any benefits for? Yes, I'm all about player empowerment. Get a master on the company dime. I'm all for that. Set yourself up for the next 40 years of your life. But when it comes to football, don't get so tied up about redshirting guys when you sit there and you see all these 4- and 5-star kids that want to come to Ohio State, and suddenly you realize there's no room at the end because you're redshirting guys. Just let the natural course work its way through.
Yeah. I think for the wide receiver room, that's something that we have discussed with a lot of the guys. Well, the room is so stacked, so when they come in, you don't even know if they're ever going to see the field at Ohio State, and especially with the recruiting classes we have coming in the next few years, there's just not enough ball to go around. And so Jameson Williams was a really good example where he left and he was a superstar at Alabama, and we still had 2 wide receivers go in the first round. And I think just the wealth at that position, especially now, is insane. So I think that's I can't wait to see how that room shakes out over the next 4 or 5 years. But I definitely get what you're saying with the red shirts, and just let them stick it out and see where it takes them, because it'll be interesting for the next few years.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings JD, I'm glad you mentioned the wide receivers, because that could be the answer to the next question for Kevin here. Which freshman for the Buckeyes do you think, and there are some talented ones, of course, which one do you think could end up having the biggest impact on the team or end up becoming a starter this season for the Buckeyes?
See, that's going to be hard pressed to be out there as a freshman starter. I think it's going to be who's going to be able to amass the most amount of meaningful plays and reps and everything else once it's all said and done. I think that Ohio State certainly is going to try and get what it can for Marvin Harrison Jr. in terms of the Biletnikoff and maybe even a Heisman campaign. I think Emeka Egbuka is going to be hard to get off the field. I think Brandon Ennis is somebody that could really step up. Now, he had a head start over Carnell Tate, who was a summer enrollee, versus Ennis, who was here for the spring. Obviously, my heart still goes out to Carnell Tate and his family after the tragic, shooting and murder of his mother. But I think Brandon Ennis is somebody that comes in and is not a true freshman, in my opinion. He, chronologically may be a true freshman, may not know how to get to Park Hall over there on Med Campus for a lecture, but he is a grown ass man when it comes to playing football. So I think he's somebody who certainly could step up. I'm thinking like on the defensive side, keep an eye on Jason Moore. I think I'm really interested on what Jason Moore could do. It is not a huge position of need in terms of where Ohio State is on three techs. I mean, obviously with Tyleik Williams and Michael Hall and Tywone Malone and everything else that they've got going on there. But I think Jason Moore is somebody that we're not going to be talking about him in September, but I think by November we could be talking about him. But we'll see. I'm kind of just running through other positions in my mind. There's some guys that I think that fit the bill in terms of the secondary, but how do you get a Jermaine Matthews or a Malik Hartford either in at corner or at safety based on what they have right now? You could be a fantastic linebacker. How do you get in over Tommy and Steele, and you have Cody Simon, and you have everything else going on there? I mean, you're going to be hard pressed. So I will take probably the easiest answer in Ennis.
Okay. Yeah, I like that one. Because everyone, it seems like, has been talking about Carnell Tate, and I feel like he's flown under the radar more, just because obviously Carnell Tate came in early and whatnot. But both are going to be really good for wide receivers for Ohio State. So this is the last question. This is going to be a fun question for you. So obviously you're a huge fan of nachos. So this question is going to be, you can build your perfect set of nachos. What all are you putting on it?
Well, I think first and foremost, I am a fan of the awful processed canned cheese on my nacho. I don't need shredded cheese on there. Yes, it's better, and it's better if you shred it yourself because it doesn't have caking agents and all that other crap on it. But I like the cheese sauce. I think a chili is very important. I like chili on my nachos. And with that, I like something that is more bean forward, because even with that, I still like to maybe have chorizo on there, or maybe some chicken, maybe both if I'm really feeling it. You got to have onion, you got to have jalapeno, prefer fresh over pickled, but pickled is fine. You need to have... This is going to be the polarizing one. I'm probably going to lose two of you because I know that America's about 50-50 on this. I like black olives. Like black olives on my nachos. I think that's important.
Good man.
But I think one of the biggest things that people make the mistake of is they get their nachos too wet. And then you get this goopy, sloppy crap middle of it. It's kind of like Ohio pizza in the square cut. And I'm from LA. I'm from Los Angeles. So I grew up with triangles. That's what I'm used to. Pie cut. And you get to the middle and you have this goopy, and I'm not a big fan of that. So you need to have proper distribution of your toppings. And I certainly, don't do your nachos in the microwave. Have patience under the broiler. Just don't set them on fire. I've set chips on fire. Apparently they're flammable because I've set chips on fire before under the broiler. Unless you live in a commercial kitchen, you have a salamander. I think that's very important. And also, I think what else is important too is, we get so desperate, especially after you've had a couple pops and you're like, I just want to eat something, and you put like a bunch of, chip crumbs. That's terrible. Make sure that you've got properly shaped chips, because there's nothing worse, because I don't want to eat my nachos with a fork. I don't want to eat my nachos with a fork. I want to eat them with my hands. I want to sit there and drink a lot of beer and watch sports and talk crap. So I think that, long story longer, that's the way I see a perfect nacho.
I love it. That was fantastic. We're never going to get a better breakdown.
I wasn't expecting that answer.
Yeah.
Way too detailed on your nachos. But
I love it.
When you're a writer, you're a storyteller, and you better be along for a story. And that's, so that's what I do.
That was fantastic. I'm a big fan myself too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Kevin, we really appreciate you joining us. Before we do let you go, I did put the link in the description, YouTube description for Buckeye Huddle, so our viewers can subscribe to the channel. But also, where can they find all of your work and all the shows that you're on?
Oh boy. All right. Yes. First and foremost, you can find me at Twitter at Kevin_Noon. That is the main place you're going to find me. You can find me at BuckeyeHuddle.com as well. Check us out. I mean, now is the time to get on board. Team coverage, recruiting, everything is all there at Buckeye Huddle for the price of a crappy delivery pizza. You can be on Buckeye Huddle for a month and check us out. And I guarantee you, if you're in for 1 month, you're in. You're going to like it. And you're going to stick around. You can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle on the Big Me Kickoff, playoff of the Big Noon Kickoff show. And you can also find me on our alternate channel, which is College Football Playbook as well, where we take a more national view on a lot of college football events. And I think that's it. I mean, I don't have a Twitch channel or anything else, to my knowledge. I don't know how to work Instagram, and I don't like taking pictures of my food all that often. But yeah, I think that's it. But first and foremost, Twitter at Kevin_Noon, and most importantly, because it pays my bills, BuckeyeHuddle.com.
Awesome. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time, and hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Thanks, guys. You guys too.
Yep, thank you so much. That was Kevin Noon with Buckeye Huddle joining us. Gentlemen, as we're wrapping things up, a little bit of a shorter show tonight. Anything else you guys want to add as we wrap this thing up?
No, I wanted to bring up Luke Montgomery on the offensive line. He just lost his black stripe 2 days ago. He is rumored to be a potential starter on the offensive line, with us losing 3 players last year from that line. He's a true freshman, so I think he's a name to watch out for. That's pretty much all I got. I'm really the next 2 weeks are going to be huge for news, just because I think we will hear starter, who's going to be our quarterback this season, and then I think we're going to get a little bit more news, and that excitement's going to build as the season gets closer and closer. So,
are we 2 weeks away now? Jeez.
That's crazy. I didn't realize it was that close.
I know.
It's crazy, man.
It's going to be.
We're Marvin Harrison days away.
That's right.
Marvin Harrison Jr. days. Let's go.
Right. Ooh,
Let's go.
That's crazy.
Also, Nick is alive. Nick is alive.
Yes. So. Hey, I was just enjoying the vibes, man. That dude is. I mean, Kevin knows his stuff, so I was just more listening to what he had to say. I mean,
we're never gonna get a better breakdown of nachos ever in my life. Am I gonna have anything better than that conversation?
So I kind of it reminded me of a story when he said that he caught his nachos on fire. Well, TJ was spending the night at my house one time. Brought over these White Castle slider. They're like frozen White Castle sliders. He threw them in the microwave. And he threw them in the microwave, and the microwave caught on fire. And it was like acrid odor, white smoke in the basement. We had to take it. My dad ran down and threw the microwave outside. And I bet he did not remember that story until I told him.
No, dude, I absolutely remember that because your dad was not happy. I'm like, all I did was put in some White Castle.
Put in the White Castle sliders.
And then,
All I
and
did.
then we go and we take them out of the microwave that caught on fire. They're still frozen.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, so basically that was a waste of food. But also, the last thing we got to end on, you and I had a bad habit of burning things because we were playing NCAA football, I think 07 on my old Xbox.
Yeah.
And we paused the game to go upstairs to eat breakfast. We come downstairs, the thing's smoking. And it burnt or something.
Fire.
Yeah, dude. So that's awesome. I needed a good laugh today, so always appreciate a good laugh. Oh man. Anyways, guys, be sure, like the video, subscribe if you're brand new, Network 216 on the road to 2,000 subscribers. You need the latest information on nachos, and Kevin just gave it to you. So make sure, again, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to Buckeye Huddle if you're already not. I know they got a ton of subscribers, but if you're not one of them, be sure to go check them out on their YouTube channel. The link's in the description for you. Again, the GoFundMe for my mother-in-law is also in the description. It's also on Twitter, so if you guys can share that post as well, really would appreciate that. But this has been episode number 21 of the Scarlet and Gray podcast, season 2, episode 2. Appreciate you all tuning in, and we can't wait to talk to you all again soon.
Brought to you by Homage.
Oh my goodness, again.
Again, just the big homage drop right at the end.
Dude, you're right though.
Sure.
Yeah.
Go get
I don't have mine on this week, of course.
That's okay.
Oh, no, it's fine. No, anyway, guys, be sure to go check out Homage, Homage Athletic Apparel. It's a 15% offer if you're a first-time customer. They're going to be dropping new Ohio State gear here very shortly with the season nearly 2 weeks away. You're going to want to take advantage. They have deals all the time. You're never going to find a more comfortable shirt. And they even have other TV show shirts on there as well. You need to go get it. That brand name apparel of Homage. Go support a local company in Columbus, Ohio. Anyway, thank you all for tuning in this episode of the Scarlet and Gray podcast. Talk to you all next week, and go Buckeyes, baby.